So this is breaking tonight. The U.S. flying B-52 bombers over NATO's eastern flank, exercising with German and Romanian militaries. It is a sign of unity as the Russian invasion of Ukraine enters its second weekend. That as Ukraine's President Zelensky condemns NATO's decision to rule out a no-fly zone over his country. Let's discuss now. The former Defense Secretary William Cohen is here, and boy, do we have a lot to discuss. Secretary, good evening. Thank you for joining us. So you heard President Zelensky. He's clearly frustrated, but Secretary Tony Blinken is saying that a no-fly zone could lead to a full-fledged war. What is the most the U.S. can do to help Ukraine? Where is the line here?
Well, we can continue to do what we're doing to date, but only accelerate it and make it even more expensive for the Russian military to combat it. More anti-aircraft, more Stingers, more Javelins, everything we can to inflict as much pain and suffering upon the Russian military as possible. But I think the most that we should do and do it as quickly as possible is take all of those images, all of these stories, and get them to the Russian people. They are being blocked now from seeing what is really taking place. I think that the most effective thing we can do is to make the Russian people rise up in anger at their own government, meaning President Putin. And I don't know how democracies can continue to do business with Putin after this. I don't know how so many remain silent. We just celebrated Black History Month, and it was Dr. King who said, we will not long remember the words of our enemies, but we'll remember the silence of our friends. And the silence of the friends here have been unwilling to come forward, not only to talk about condemning Russia, but to take action, to cut off their relationship, to downgrade their relationship, to make Russia feel the pain, much not as great as what the Ukrainians are suffering now, to be sure. Feel the pain in their lives. They no longer have the freedom of thought or speech. The fact that they say it's a military, it's a war, put you in jail for 15 years. The fact that you criticize your military, 15 years. Now that's cancel culture. When people in this country talk about cancel culture, that's real cancel culture. And so what he's doing, he's shutting down the ability of people to know the truth. And what we can do, the most effective thing we can do, in addition to providing all of this equipment to help them take on this war, is to get the information war into the Russian people, into all of Russia. See the people rise up.
Let me jump in and talk to you about some of that, because you're right. I mean, this puts it into perspective. That is real cancel culture. But let's talk about some of the things that the U.S. is doing. The U.S. has supplied anti-aircraft Stingers, tank-busting Javelins. CNN is reporting the U.S. is sharing intel with Ukraine on troop positioning, intercepted communications, detailing Russian military planning, in some cases sharing information with Kyiv within a half hour of receiving it. How important is that on the battlefield?
Oh, it's critical. Information is power. Information tells the Ukrainians where the Russians are moving at any given point, making an assessment of what the capability of that Russian column might be. So information is critical. We have to continue to provide it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they have been so successful to date, is they're relying upon Western information getting to them. We need to continue that and make sure we stay with it as long as we possibly can. But it really, where's the end in all of this? And my own view is more pessimistic, because I don't think Putin stops with Ukraine to the extent he can ever suppress it. He will next say, I asked you to get out of these countries that were once mine. And that's when we're going to have to really face the music with him to say, no, NATO is here to stay. We're not reducing. You're not going back. And then if he threatens nuclear weapons or some other kind of major attack upon the United States, we have to face it, face on. So it may not be now, but it might come later.
Are you surprised that over a week into this invasion, Russia still does not have full control over airspace over Ukraine?
Well, it's been talked about at length. The Russians may have overestimated their ability, and they underestimated the ability of the Ukrainians to resist. But it certainly doesn't look like a three-dimensional chess, as we constantly refer to Putin playing three-dimensional chess. He's not doing very well at the chess game. But again, he's probably going to inflict far more damage than he has. He's going to create a wasteland for Ukraine. And the danger is he's going to hopefully not provoke us into creating a wasteland on a much wider basis. But this is what the American people have to understand. We have to really start being willing to sacrifice here at home. Those people are dying. We're going to see higher prices, higher gas prices, higher inflation. But we have to be willing to bear that, because Putin is not just coming for Ukraine. He is a danger to freedom as we know it, to democracy. This is a war against democracy. So the democracies of the world have to be willing to stand up now and say that we'll do whatever we can. Commercial cutoff, absolutely. We have to be willing to bear the burden of having tough times, economic times, if we hope to stop what he's doing. But I don't know how any country can look at Putin in the future and not see war criminal across the brow, because that's what he is doing. He is committing, in my judgment, war crimes, even though the United States doesn't want to get there yet. But when you shell children's hospitals, the parents of those kids who are suffering from cancer now have to be concerned, how do they get in a subway or in a bomb shelter to deal with their children? And if that's not a war crime, then attacking a nuclear power plant certainly qualifies as that. So that's the danger that we face, and the world has to speak up. And I don't know how we deal with Putin in the future. He's lied about not being willing to attack. He's lied about he wouldn't target civilian areas. He's lied about everything. So I don't know how you deal with him in the future. And I think the only way, ultimately, the world is going to be safe if he's no longer in power. And that depends upon the Russian people rising up.
And listen, there's no doubt that what is coming out of Ukraine is horrific. I mean, the stories, the children, people watching their homes just be obliterated and their lives be upended, and they're losing friends and loved ones, family and neighbors. And you said that it's going to have to be sacrifices made. Now, you hear people here in the United States, and I'm speaking for the people at home, many people who are watching, they understand what's happening. A lot of them understand that there will have to be sacrifices. But there are others, quite frankly, Secretary, who will say there's war and unrest at any given point all over the world every single day. Why is the U.S. there? Why this sacrifice? Why sacrifice for this and not for others?
Because Putin is not going to stop with Ukraine. He is an enemy of freedom. The Ukrainians have done nothing but wish for democracy and freedom and prosperity. And he can't stand that near his country. So he is an enemy of freedom. And if the people in this country don't understand what's taking place, run those photos, continue to run all of that film, get it into Russia in particular, and then call upon the major countries to say, yes, we know you've got interests in Russia, but are you willing to risk this war spreading to other nations? And the fact that a nuclear power plant could go down, you think the damage is going to be confined to Ukraine? We've done studies on this to see what happens if you target a chemical weapons facility. What happens in terms of the weather conditions? How high is the plume? How much radiation would be spread all over that part of Europe and possibly into Russia? So this is not simply saying the war is over there, that's their problem. No, it's our problem. It's the world's problem when you're dealing with a man who's capable of this cruelty and this barbarity.
We appreciate you bringing perspective to this. Right on, Secretary. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Be well.
Thank you. Good to be with you, John.
You as well. Homes turned to rubble, gardens obliterated, the death toll still not known. We have got an in-depth look at a Ukrainian village shelled beyond existence. That's next.